I never imagined that the worst moment of my life would happen at my own daughter's wedding reception, the one I had paid for, planned for, and cried happy tears over for 3 years. I'm Margaret. I'm 67 years old, and I have spent the last 4 decades building something from nothing. Not a little something either, a real business. Clearwater Home Health Services, a network of in-home care agencies across 4 states that employs over 300 people and has served thousands of families through some of the hardest seasons of their lives. I built it after my husband, Robert, passed from a sudden heart attack when our son was 9 and our daughter was 6. I had $11,000 in a savings account, a 2-bedroom house with a leaky roof, and 2 kids who needed me to figure it out fast. So I figured it out. I won't bore you with every detail of those early years, except to say that I worked the kind of hours that aged me a decade in 5 years. I drove myself to clients' homes. I trained caregivers in my living room. I negotiated contracts at kitchen tables while my kids did homework 3 feet away. There were years I ran the heat as low as 62 degrees in January to keep the electric bill manageable. There were years I skipped my own birthday dinner so I could cover payroll. But it worked. And the thing that made it all worth doing, the thought I held on to on every hard day, was that I was building something my children could inherit. Not just money, a legacy, a purpose, something that would still have my name on it long after I was gone. My son Kevin never had much interest in the business. He became a high school history teacher in Portland, and honestly, I respect that more than I can say. He knows who he is. He married a sweet woman named Dana. They have 2 boys, and every Thanksgiving they drive 8 hours to sit at my kitchen table and eat until they can't move. Kevin and I are solid. We have always been solid. My daughter Christine was different. Christine was brilliant in the way that made you nervous, sharp, strategic, persuasive. She could sell anything to anyone and make them feel like they'd gotten the better deal. When she was 24, she came to me and said she wanted to learn the business from the ground up. I said yes before she finished the sentence. For 6 years, she did exactly that. She started answering phones, she moved into scheduling, then operations, then regional management. She was good, genuinely impressively good. By the time she was 30, she was running our Mid-Atlantic division, and our revenues in that region had grown by 40%. I was so proud of her that sometimes I'd sit in my office after she left a meeting and just feel this warmth in my chest that I can only describe as relief. Relief that everything I'd built had someone worthy to carry it forward. Then she met Brandon. Brandon was, and I want to be fair here because I know I'm not an impartial source, charming in the way that hollow things often are. He was handsome and well-dressed, and he laughed easily and always seemed to know the right thing to say in a room full of people. He worked in commercial real estate. He came from money, old Atlanta money, the kind of family that has a last name people recognize at charity galas. His mother, Diane, wore Chanel to a Sunday brunch and looked at my house, my paid-off 4-bedroom house in a good neighborhood that I had earned every inch of. The way you look at a gas station bathroom when you're desperate. I noticed it from the beginning. I didn't say anything because Christine was happy, and Christine being happy mattered more to me than being right about a feeling I couldn't prove yet. They got engaged after 2 years. Christine called me on a Tuesday morning crying and laughing at the same time, and I cried too. I meant it completely. The wedding was planned for the following October. A venue outside Savannah. Brandon's family had connections there, which I understood, and the guest list grew to 240 people. I paid for most of it, not because anyone asked me to, but because I wanted to. It was my daughter's wedding. I had the means. I wrote the checks gladly. What I did not expect, what I could not have anticipated in any version of events I imagined, was what happened at the reception. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Christine was radiant in a way that made my throat close up when I saw her at the end of the aisle. I sat in the front row and held Kevin's hand and thought, we made it. All of it, the cold winters, the early mornings, the years of uncertainty, it had led to this moment, this beautiful, perfect moment. The reception was held in a white tent on the grounds of a restored plantation estate, round tables with ivory linens and flowers I had helped select, a live band, open bar, a three-tiered cake that cost more than my first car. It was exactly what Christine had wanted, and I was glad. I was seated at the head family table, the table nearest the dance floor, the one where the immediate family sits. That had been arranged weeks ago. Christine and I had gone over the seating chart together at my kitchen table over 2 cups of coffee. My name was on that chart, at that table, in Christine's own handwriting. I found my place card, sat down, and was talking to Kevin about the ceremony when Brandon's mother, Diane, appeared at my shoulder. I turned, expecting pleasantries. What she said instead was, "Margaret, we've made a small change to the seating. Brandon's grandmother has just arrived. She flew in from Palm Beach. It was unexpected, and we thought it would be most appropriate for her to sit here with the immediate family. We've arranged a lovely seat for you at table 7. I looked at her. I thought I had misheard. "I'm sorry." "Table 7, she said again, already reaching for my place card. "It's right over there, near the window. Very nice view." Table 7 was in the back third of the tent, next to the bar cart and the entrance to the kitchen. It was where Christine's college roommates were sitting, people I liked perfectly well, but people who were not, by any definition, the family of the bride. I stood up from that table, slowly, because my knees aren't what they were, and I felt every eye in that section of the room find me. I saw the look on Kevin's face. I saw Christine 20 feet away on the dance floor, frozen, looking at her new mother-in-law with an expression I could not fully read. And then I watched my daughter look away. She looked away. I walked to table 7. I sat down. I smiled at Christine's college friends who were kind enough not to say anything obvious. I ordered a glass of water. I did not leave, and I did not cry, and I did not cause a scene, because I had raised myself to believe that the moment you lose your composure in public is the moment you lose everything else along with it. But I want you to understand what that walk felt like. I want you to really understand it. I'm the woman who paid for the flowers on every table in that tent. I'm the woman who signed the contract with the venue. I am the woman who gave this child everything, not just money, not just opportunity, but 30 years of watching her become who she was. And I was walked to the back of the room like a guest who had wandered in from a neighboring event. I sat at table 7 for 2 hours. I ate the salmon. I danced once with Kevin, who kept his jaw tight the whole song and didn't say a word because he knew if he said what he was thinking, I would have to talk him down. I hugged Christine at the end of the night. She said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. It just happened so fast." I told her I loved her and that I hoped she had a beautiful life. I meant both of those things completely. Then I got in my car, drove 40 minutes back to my hotel, sat on the edge of the bed in my mother of the bride dress, and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, Gerald Park, who has handled Clearwater's legal affairs for 19 years, and who answers his phone at 11:30 at night when I call because he knows I don't call at 11:30 at night unless it matters. "Gerald," I said, "I need to begin the process of restructuring Christine's ownership stake and executive authority. I'd like to start the paperwork first thing Monday." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'll have a draft ready by 9. The second call was to my CFO, a woman named Patricia, who is 62 and has worked with me for 23 years and who once told me she would follow me into a burning building if I told her there was a good reason. I told her what I needed. She said, "Consider it done." The third call was to my own voicemail, where I left myself a message with every detail I wanted to remember in the morning, because I had learned long ago that decisions made in the middle of the night feel different at 7 a.m. And I wanted to make sure that what I was feeling in that hotel room was real, and not just the raw wound of a bad evening. I listened to it the next morning. It was real. I want to be honest with you about something, because I think it matters. I did not act out of spite, or rather, I acted out of something more complicated than spite. I acted because of what Christine's silence meant. Not the seating, not to Diane. Christine, my daughter, who had watched her new mother-in-law take my place card from in front of me, who had met my eyes across a dance floor, and who had chosen in that moment not to walk over, not to say a word. That silence told me something I had been trying not to hear for 2 years. Christine had been changed. Not replaced, not stolen. She was still my daughter, and I would love her until I stopped breathing. But the Christine who had sat across from me at countless late-night work sessions, who had called me at 6 a.m. when she closed her first major contract, who had once told me that everything she knew about strengths she had learned from watching me, the Christine had decided, somewhere along the way, that where she was going, she didn't need to carry me with her. That was her choice to make, and it was mine to respond to accordingly. Monday morning came. I was in the office by 7:15. By 9 a.m., Gerald had emailed me a restructuring proposal. Christine's role as regional vice president carried with it a conditional equity stake, 20% of the Mid-Atlantic division, vesting over 10 years. She was 4 years in. I had the legal right to halt the vesting process based on a clause in her original employment agreement, one she had signed before either of us imagined we'd ever need it. Gerald walked me through it carefully, making sure I understood every implication, and I told him to proceed. Patricia had already begun the audit process, a standard review of all executive decisions made in Christine's division over the past 18 months. Standard in the sense that it was legally above board. Less standard in the sense that we had not done one in 3 years, and the timing was not accidental. I also made a call to our largest referral partner in Virginia, a senior living network called Bluecrest, with whom Christine had been personally managing the relationship. I spoke with the director of partnerships directly and let her know that going forward I would be resuming personal oversight of that account. I didn't say why. I didn't need to. Christine found out on Wednesday. She called me at 2:17 in the afternoon. I was in a meeting with our insurance broker and I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 2:40. I let that one go too. When my meeting ended at 3, I had 4 missed calls from Christine and one text that said, "Mom, please call me. I need to understand what is happening." I called her back at 3:30 from my office with the door closed. "Christine," I said, "Mom, what is going on?" "Gerald called me this morning about the vesting halt. Patricia's team is going through my division's files, and Anne at Bluecrest told me you called her directly." "Mom, that account is mine. I built that relationship." "You did," I said. "You did very good work on that account." "Then why?" "Because I'm restructuring," I said. "I'm making some changes to how the business is organized going forward. Gerald will walk you through everything in detail. Your current salary and benefits are not affected. Your title is not immediately changed. But I've decided to resume direct oversight of certain key accounts and to revisit the equity timeline." There was a silence on the line so long that I checked to make sure the call was still connected. "Is this about the wedding?" she finally said. It wasn't a question. "It's about the business," I said. "But I won't pretend the wedding didn't clarify some things for me." "Mom." Her voice broke a little on that word. "Diane arranged the seating. I didn't know until it was happening." "I didn't know how to." "You knew," I said gently. "You saw me, and you knew, and you made a choice. I understand why. I'm not asking you to defend it. But I also made a choice, and this is it." She cried. I let her. I didn't hang up, and I didn't fill the silence with reassurances I didn't have to give. When she had steadied herself a little, she said, "Are you trying to push me out?" "No," I said, and I meant it. "I'm trying to recalibrate something that got out of balance. You have a place in this company, Christine. You've earned real things here. But that place is not unconditional, and I think somewhere along the way we both forgot that." What happened over the following months was not dramatic in the way that movies are dramatic. It was the quiet, grinding kind of difficult that real life usually is. Christine took a leave of absence in November, her choice. She and Brandon moved to Atlanta to be closer to his family. I heard through Kevin that Brandon's family had connections to a development firm down there, and that Brandon was positioning Christine as a potential investor in one of their projects. I heard that Diane had introduced Christine at the charity luncheon as Brandon's wife, not by her name, not by her profession, just Brandon's wife. I also heard from Christine herself in a phone call in February that the investment had not gone the way Brandon's family had promised, and that Christine was beginning to understand certain things she had not understood before. I did not say I told you so. I am 67 years old, and I have lived long enough to know that those words have never once helped anyone. What I said was, "Come home for Easter. Kevin and Dana are coming. I'll make the lamb." She came. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where we had gone over her original employment agreement, where we had mapped out her division's 5-year growth plan, where she had once cried happy tears over a contract win, and I had poured us both a small glass of wine at 3 in the afternoon because some moments deserve it. She sat there and she looked tired in the way that people look tired when they've been working very hard at pretending everything is fine. After Kevin and Dana took the kids outside and the kitchen got quiet, Christine put her hands around her coffee mug and said, "Mom, I am so sorry. Not about the vesting, not about the business restructuring, about the wedding, about the moment she saw me across the dance floor and looked away. I've been going over it in my head for 6 months," she said. "I don't have an explanation that makes it okay." I panicked. I was standing there in my wedding dress and I panicked. And I chose the wrong thing. And I've thought about the look on your face every single day since then. I looked at my daughter, my sharp, brilliant, complicated daughter who had her father's eyes and my stubbornness, and who had once sat in a car seat in the back of a Kia while I drove to client meetings and sung along to the radio because I couldn't afford a babysitter. "I know," I said. "I know you have. We didn't fix everything at Easter dinner. That's not how real things get fixed. But we started, which is more than I had let myself hope for through the winter." Christine came back to work in June. A different role, a rebuilt foundation, a new conversation about what her equity path would look like going forward and what it would require. Gerald drafted a revised agreement that was clearer than the first one, with expectations on both sides spelled out in language neither of us could misread later. It wasn't the same as before. I don't think it will ever be exactly the same as before. But I have come to believe that the same as before wasn't entirely working either. We had built something comfortable that had hidden some cracks, and the wedding, as horrible as that night was, had done the painful work of showing them to me. I think about that walk to table 7 sometimes. I think about it not with the sharp anger I felt that October night, but with a different feeling. Something more like gratitude, which I know sounds strange, because that walk in its way told me the truth about what had shifted, about what had shifted, about what I had allowed to go unaddressed for too long, about what I needed to do to protect something I had spent my whole life building. I told Christine once, early in her career, that the most dangerous thing in any business is comfortable silence. The problems you can see and name are the problems you can solve. It's the ones no one talks about that take you down. I should have applied that lesson to us years earlier. I'm working on that now. We both are. If you've been carrying something similar, a relationship that's gotten out of balance, a moment where you stayed quiet when you shouldn't have, a slow drift you kept telling yourself wasn't as serious as it felt, I hope something in this story is useful to you. Not the specific decisions I made. Those were mine, and they belong to my particular life and my particular history. But the principle underneath them, that love and accountability are not opposites, that you can hold someone with open hands and still refuse to be moved from what you know is true. That took me 67 years to fully understand. I'm glad I finally do. I've had a lot of time to sit with what happened, not just the wedding night itself, though I've replayed that walk to table 7 more times than I'd like to admit, but everything that led up to it and everything that came after. And the thing I keep coming back to is this: none of it was sudden. Not really. The consequences Christine faced didn't arrive out of nowhere. They were the end of a long chain, and every link in that chain had been quietly forming for years. When I gave Christine real authority in the business, I did it because she had earned it. But I also did it without building in enough accountability, and that was my failure as much as anything else. I made it easy for her to forget that what she had was given, not guaranteed. I think sometimes when we love people that completely, we protect them from the very friction that would have made them stronger. I protected Christine too well, and in doing so, I accidentally made room for Diane to fill a space that should have had boundaries in it. What I did after the wedding wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that, because I think the word gets applied too easily to situations like mine. Revenge is about pain, making someone hurt the way you hurt. What I did was closer to correction. I removed something that had become unbalanced and I rebuilt it on terms that were honest. There's a difference, even if from the outside it can look the same. Christine is not a bad person. I believed that on the night of the wedding, and I believe it still. But character isn't just what you are at your best. It's what you choose in the moments when it costs you something to choose right. That night in the tent, choosing me would have cost Christine something. It would have meant a difficult conversation with her new husband, probably a scene with Diane, probably a harder first night of a marriage that was already complicated. I understand why she didn't do it. I don't excuse it, but I understand it. What I hope she is learning, what I can see her beginning to understand, slowly, in the way real understanding always comes, is that integrity doesn't ask permission. You either have it in the moment or you don't, and no amount of apologizing afterward gives you back the moment you missed. That's not a punishment. That's just how it works. The three things I have tried to build my life around: doing what is right even when it's uncomfortable, thinking clearly instead of reacting, and getting back up every single time. None of those came naturally to me. I learned them the hard way, the same way Christine is learning them now. I was 31 years old, alone, with 2 kids and a leaking roof, and I had a choice about what kind of woman I was going to be. I chose, and I have kept choosing every day since. That's all any of us can do, really. Keep choosing. And if you've ever been walked to the back of a room that you helped build, I want you to know something. Where they seat you doesn't determine your value. What you do next does.